Welcome to Realty Trader Talk podcast. I'm Jordan Kane, sponsored by Chaser Water, sponsored by RealtyTrader.com. I've got a really special guest today. One of the big inspirations of even why I started this podcast. He invited me on his, and I saw it and I thought it was just a super cool experience. So I started running it and doing podcasts. So I'm super thrilled to have him here. And, I always like learning from this guy, Jonnie Parsons. How's it going?
What's up, boss?
What's up, brother? Thanks for coming on.
Love to see it, man. Love to see everything you got going on. I mean, we were jitterbugs in the streets together, bro.
Speaking of jitterbugs in the street, I see you brought another jitterbug from the street coming on.
Did I?
Didn't Torres come over?
No, he helped me that day.
Oh, man, I was so
He
excited,
helped me
dog.
push the play button that day. But yeah, we talked about it. We're gonna do something. We got to collab.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, big nostalgia moment.
we hung out that night, and because he's working with us now, and it was kind of like old days. I just don't get down like that no more.
Right. Yeah, I mean, not that way, but it's still nice to spend time with the people that brings back those memories.
100%, man. I posted that video, and then like all the people from like back in the day were like, "Bring the parties back!" Like we used to walk into the John Carroll and the LPA parties and just take the keg and walk straight out, and they would just look at us and like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Back when there was kegs,
All the girls were like, "We need that beer," and they're like, "Well, we're gonna go with them."
Right, it's gonna be over at the house. Come and get it.
Yep.
Yeah. I just went and showed property. I've got a friend all the way from middle school, and he mentioned it yesterday. Is like, he came in, had a certain smell about him, and he's like, well, I'm like, oh boy. He's like, well, you're the one who started me on it back in the day. I'm like, this is all the way from 7th grade. So, it was, again, I don't get down like that either, but it was just funny to like have around and be around and think about those memories.
So we can influence people in those ways, or we can influence them in other ways, right?
Amen. It took me this many years in life, though, to realize that influence is there and the right direction to show it. So speaking of influence, this collective, like huge influence.
Bro,
I'm super excited.
It's turning into something that I never thought it would turn into, and definitely keeping God involved in it and really having that like faith. Someone reached out to me today. They're like, "Oh, you got like the 5 pillars, but wouldn't faith be the foundation?" And I'm like, 100% would be the foundation, and it is the foundation of the Iron Legacy Collective. So we just wanted something that I don't think I researched it. The only thing you really see is like networking groups, and there's nothing that really brings value to the community for, without going to seminars in larger cities and spending large amounts of money. The amount of value that we're trying to bring with this, with like an ongoing personal development community I think is priceless for anybody that's willing to put in the time. And so far, like I said, what we're doing, the speaking events, we've done one, we got another one coming up with some amazing speakers coming up on the next one. And, we do weekly, kind of master classes every week, Wednesday night on a Zoom meeting. We take turns, like, calling people up to bring a teaching. And, it's been, like I said, something that I never thought it would turn into. And I get like excited for Wednesday nights to come around now. And people are telling us that they love it, and so we're going to.
Well, I jumped on. I had just flown in the day before, so I was still jet lagged, and I just had come back from Europe, and 6 hours, then flying all day. It's a lot. So I was at my son's. He had football tryouts, so I jumped on the Zoom anyways because I wanted to see what was going on, and I caught a part that Alex was talking about. Because I align with this, it's like, I know people take notes in their phone and do notes. He's like, get a book and write it down, and like, I'm still like that. I'm old school that way. I still like notes. I still want to, put my thoughts down, my goals, and, hard write them on a journal or in a book.
Personally, when I put a pen on a piece of paper, I articulate better than if I'm speaking. In my opinion, I think I sound better, sound like a professional writer or something. I can't really get words out the same way I can whenever I'm putting it down on paper. So especially with like journaling and stuff, I'm still not going to say I'm perfect at it, but I've started journaling early on in my walk. And, I try to, on a daily basis, write down what I'm going through, thanking God for what I have, almost like a prayer on paper, and then kind of where I'm at. And I look back at it like from whenever I was early on in my walk, and I'm like, man, this guy was just hungry and had that drive in him. And like, and you can see like somebody who's like that is gonna be successful. It's compounding that the way that I was daily. It's inevitable for you to have success.
Well, you know, when like people talk about that 90 and 90 and like when you first get started, and, you know, I think back of, you know, an early recovery and just, you know, how I looked around everyone in the rooms, how I wanted that so bad, and, you know, try to align with those people or get, you know, around those people. You know, how do you, you know, think about from that, you know, that hunger? You know, I see a lot of the success you do now, and, you know, you've got 5 different things going. How do you keep that same hunger? You know, what's your,
Every day's a blessing for me, man. Like I was out on a job site digging holes with the laborers last night till 9 o'clock at night, and I loved every minute of it. And it's like, you know, and I just, I guess if you love what you do, it's not work for you. Like you never get burnt out. So like everything that I have going on in my life is valuable to me and my growth and success, and the fact that I can help and bring value to others. So I don't, you know, it's not burnout if you love what you're doing. So I guess that's, and balance. So being able to know like, hey, you know, I've had this Bible study for this long, you know, God's kind of pushing me this other direction. So having to be able to look and see like, hey, I can take this away, add this, you know, so that I can keep all my priorities in check. And that's what's important, obviously, is priorities.
so what's one of the habits that you think is destroying people's lives today?
I think probably social media, probably a cell phone. I mean, I wouldn't say that it made my life unmanageable, but I definitely noticed that it was taking away from my time with my family, things that I needed to do. And just like anything in our lives, it's a dopamine hit, it's a dopamine rush. So I wouldn't say, you know, self control, but I would say that like, cause it's a double-edged sword. What helps us can also be something that hurts us. So there's has to be, like I said before, like some sort of balance to it. So like when me and my wife were in the bedroom, we came to the conclusion, we're like, hey, when we're inside this door, that thing goes away.
Mhm.
We're reading, we're watching TV, like, you know, we're talking, whatever, hanging out with each other, actually being present. Anytime we go out to eat, phones go away. Same thing with my son. And like, we just gotta, you know, have that time, experience our lives, and it can be a distraction. And we just, you know, it's my responsibility to kind of lead the way and lead the charge in my household and say, like, we're not going to do that. But if I'm on my phone, then how am I leading? Showing them to do it. So
I think that's, you know, I actually align with that in the same way with Tiffany and myself. And we, you know, I can't sit there. Both of my kids have phones because you know, we have separate, I have a stepson and then my son, and they go to the other parents. And, you know, sometimes it's not as easy to communicate with them when they're over there. So I got phones so we can communicate, but it turns into, you know, them on the phones or trying to play Roblox. And, you know, I'll tell my boys, go outside, ride the four-wheelers or do this and put the phones down. And then, you know, a deal comes in, or I'm texting, or, you know, social media, you know, and you get lost in it, and you can't sit there and, you know, tell them one thing and then not be the leader of your household and do something different. And
100%.
I just had that conversation last night. There's a you know, a few different things. Like I still have a problem cussing. I'm working on it. It's, you know, something I want to work on. But it's, you know, I can't sit there and, you know, I'll listen to music, or sometimes it's not the best music. And then I sit there and tell my boys, you know, they can't do it. And, you know, I'm an adult, and, you know, if you're not that leader and actually being that person of your household, you know, you're just a hypocrite. And that's, you know, that's what
It's
they're
the
gonna
spirit
say.
of conviction, man. It comes over you. If you're that, our parents did it to us, right? Do as I say, not as I do. But
Right.
how are you acting? Like, I always put myself in other people's shoes. So if I'm my son and I see that he's saying I'm doing one thing and telling him to do something else, like, I'm not going to respect that. I'm not going to think that it's right. And especially not necessarily in that relationship or that scenario, but in other areas of his life, he's not going to respect it when people tell him not to do something. So we have to, you know, I have to put myself in other people's shoes whenever I'm how would I want to be led? What kind of leaders do I look up to? And that's what I want to be to the world.
With these phones and what social media is, what do you think the biggest lie they're selling today on social media?
I wouldn't say it would be a lie. I mean, I guess, listen, man, whatever you're liking is what they're feeding you. So you talk about back in the day on TikTok, they had a God talk. They had different areas of TikTok. I mean, you can find anything you want to find on the internet, but whatever. And it's the same thing with what we're getting fed with media, because social media is just us interacting with media. You're getting fed. If that's what you're getting fed, that's what you're going to, that's what you're going to portray. That's what you're going to eat. So I think that the lie is only what you're putting into it. For me, lust, right? If I'm looking at liking a girl's picture, or liking, someone that's beautiful, and I have my beautiful wife sitting at home, like what am I lying to? I'm trying to do other things.
Well, what I've come to realize is that like lust is there. We're genetically built a certain way, and especially if you work out, you eat red meat, testosterone, all the different pieces. But I mean, if an attractive girl walks by, mentally it's gonna click. You can't help it. You can't turn it off. It's your actions of what you take. Are you gonna act on those? And that goes with drugs, if you want to do it, all the different pieces. But I mean, if you act on it, that's the difference. Because it's
well, just
happen.
like with a relapse, right? Mm-hmm. You relapse long before you ever pick up the drug. Mm-hmm. It's taking the thought captive. That's biblical. The Bible says that you need to take a thought captive. So for me, like, it was lust, pornography. I conquered all these other things in my life, and lust and pornography was something early on in my walk that was like, because we're taught as young men that like women are pieces of meat to it's just another girl, and you don't see it as a gift. And then, once I was able to actually do some work on myself and realize it, like, hey, that's my sister, that's my daughter, that's my mom. I was in church, like undressing women with my eyes, and my beautiful wife standing right next to me. And, I was like, I guess when you take one thing away, something else is revealed. And every time you think, that's why it's a constant battle of continuing to work on myself, because, I have longer and longer periods of abstinence from those things. And like you said, taking the thought captive. Yes, we're at the fights, right? And the girl walks by we're sitting 10 feet away from the ring. And she's like, what are you looking at? I'm like, I don't know. She just walked right by. What am I supposed to do? Like, look the other way? And it wasn't like I was like, gawking at the girl or nothing, but I just happened to look up. And I, my wife's Brazilian. She's jealous. Mm-hmm. And, we're working on that too, because that's something that she had to deal with from her past. Cause
sure.
I'm not that guy or that person that was in her past, and never really gave her a reason to think that about me. Mm-hmm. And I always keep it professional. I always, anytime I'm interacting with women, let them know, like I talk about my wife all the time, like I would never cheat on her. I've never cheated on a woman in my life. And I hold that value, close to my heart, because a lot of people can't say that, and it's just never been something that was, something I wanted to do.
Well, trust, man, it takes years to build and 2 seconds to lose, especially in a marriage. It takes that one time to ruin it.
I've lost trust in other ways for sure, and I almost know it, like that I'm like, oh man, I messed up this one. So now I'm in the doghouse for a little while, but it's a process. I mean, I used drugs with my wife for quite a while, and thought I was hiding it from her, and I was the worst one to hide anything from her. I remember I was dipping. This is after I got off drugs. I'm like, I used to put a big old horseshoe dip of some wintergreen long cut, and she's like, look, if you keep doing that, I'm never gonna kiss you again. And I'm like, okay. So I was like, I'm gonna stop. It's the first time I ever stopped cold turkey, anything, mm-hmm. And but I remember like 2-3 days in, like I really wanted a dip. I think about it now. I'm like, it would be nice to put a big dip in my lip, but like I just know that I don't want to go back to that. And but every time I got that urge, or I felt like I wanted to, I'm like, I don't want it. And I've been able to overcome a lot of things because of situations and scenarios, and knowing that you can overcome anything if you put your mind to it.
One time I with my ex-wife. We bought a house off of the boulevard over kind of Becker area, and got up, and I was, strung out on drugs, hopped in. I had a Jaguar, 3 a.m, drove down to the hood in Fort Pierce, come back. And I'm like, I knew it. So I stopped by Walgreens. It was 24 hours and like bought ice cream. Cause she was texting me.
Oh, dude.
So I
You
walked,
don't even want to get into them stories.
right. I walked in with
Yeah.
ice cream. I'm like, what do you mean? I was hungry. I got ice, gone for 3 hours at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
to get ice cream, just pure ridiculousness.
Knowing you're going to get caught, but it was just a matter like, her, as long as I can leave, I'm good. As long as I make it out the door, I know she'll find out 10 minutes later, but I'll already be gone. So,
in today's brain, you think about that ridiculousness, though. Like how, in that moment, you think you're coming up with something that's going to work, or you're slick, or what. I mean, in today's world, I think back and like, what just a scumbag idiot I was.
that's why I hear some of the, dope fiend stuff from like guys that that work with us and stuff. And they're like, dude,
right.
you can't dope fiend a dope fiend, bro.
Right.
Like, I did it.
Right.
My son
that
tries
up
to
the
tell
road.
me stuff like from like getting over stuff on school. I'm like, bro, like I picked him up from after school, and he's got palmetto leaves on his hoodie, and I'm like, this little MFer's been in the woods.
Mhm.
Like, oh, what happened today? How was after school? He's like, oh, it was great. Going the next day, they're like, Braden wasn't here yesterday. Oh, so now you're skipping school in the woods, huh? Like, bro, you can't get over it. I did that.
I knew
bro.
that 2 days ago,
did
right?
that.
Right.
And then now, like, I'm just like, just tell me the truth, bro, because I already know. So, like, you're better off just telling me the truth. And I was like, okay, I did it. And I'm like, I know you did.
Right, to figure it out. I just came back from France, and it was like World War II, and like 80% of these towns were destroyed. I was
Yeah.
in Dunkirk, where they made this recent movie where they were bombing, and the British had to send all the boats over. So, I'm thinking about these guys and like how it was in World War II, and then like how the men are today. And, are we building strong men? Or are we, building comfortable, with social media? Like, where are our men today? What do you think?
I mean, think about it for yourself. You as yourself. I mean, for me, looking at myself, like, I try everything in my power to not get in that position of comfort. That position of comfort where you feel like you can, okay, I'm good now. I can sit back. I can relax a little because, even, let's with prayer, like I should be praying in the good times and in the bad times. It's not just in the bad times when I want or need something. So I need to be grinding just as hard as when I'm have all of my needs met as the same as when I don't, and I want more, you know what I mean? So, that's just been like ingrained into my like being, how I am, how I carry myself. And so that's my goal, right? Is to pour into the next generation. Like I just met the other night for just a bunch of 30 or 40 juvenile diversion program for Martin County. The PAL does it every Wednesday night. And I'm like, man, I was that kid. I was sitting in that same chair at 12 years old in trouble, for stealing shoes from the rack room shoes, and like didn't really have anybody pouring into me. I think there was 12-step was the first thing that came to me that actually was something that a seed was planted. And I'm not going to say I went from that point and I was good, but at least the seed was planted. And later on in my life, I still have people in my life whenever I was younger that I think of things they told me that still stick with me today. So that's what I want to try to be for folks, for the next generation, for my son, and to because it is if you're comfortable. What's that? The saying Joe Rogan says. I can't quote it right now, but he's like, "Hard times bring hard people. Soft times bring whatever." We'll post it at the end, but
yeah,
that's the quote I'm looking at where it's true, because I look at my son. Like, dude, when I was 15, I was a whole different kid. I was in the streets at like 12 riding bicycles around the neighborhood, and he's 15. He can't even go outside and play basketball. So they're definitely way more sheltered.
Oh, bro, I mentioned I was just showing property with, I'm going to show him some after this podcast. And, I was thinking back, like, we were in the woods when you mentioned the woods, smoking weed before Northport Middle School. And I'm thinking about 7th grade. My son's going into 7th grade. And I'm like, he's not on that kind of time at all by,
You can't picture him doing it.
no,
Yeah.
not at all. He's a good kid, and he's at St. Andrews, and, Kodak Black says keep him in the beehive. So, I try to do the best I can with that. But,
Kodak Black.
Kodak Black. But, it's just, thinking back of like, what does society need to be told today? Like, what is one thing, that,
I think we need to follow Jesus. I think we need Jesus in our lives and our hearts. And if you strive on a daily basis to be Christ-like, then you can still be. You don't have to be like this ruthless, like pit bull of a person. Like another Rogan quote, like I would rather be a gardener in a war than a warrior in a garden, or vice versa. I think
right,
warrior in a garden and a gardener in a war.
100%.
And so I would like to prepare myself for the worst, but and for whatever, you know what I mean, but still be humble and sensitive and be able to teach other men that it's okay to be like that.
Well, what got you into this? You've developed a really strong leadership mentality, and things that you say stick with people. Me personally, I align with you. We go way back, but getting with you, going on the podcast, starting, me seeing that inspiration, and now I've had people reach out to me. I had someone message me on Messenger, hey, I see your journey. I just want you to know, I just found Jesus, and and wanted to get up. So I just now am really like seeing that inspiration that you are to people. What led you into that, or made you feel like, hey, at what point? Because I know when you were doing your 90 and 90, you probably didn't, say you had that at that time.
I think we all have leadership qualities about ourselves, right? I think in the world today, like most people see, like we want to follow somebody, we want to go be something or do something. But I've always, like my whole life, have been kind of like I've always, maybe there's like a little bit of Asperger's going on inside of me or something, like where like I've just always felt different. Not that I'm better, but I always just kind of felt different, and that way that like these guys wanted to go do that, I'm like, well, I'm gonna go do this, like, and it just was the way that I always carry myself. So I want to say maybe like sports, definitely got me into the discipline, and then just was like, I don't know, like a natural leader. So like, I'll never forget, like I used to, when I was in 12 step, I got like almost 6 years clean the first time. And then in between that 6 years and when I got clean this last time, I drug across the bottom basically for about 5 years. So during that 5-year period, I was the guy that like picked up a white key tag once a week, had to walk up with my tail between my legs, filled with shame and guilt because I used again. And, I just remember thinking that like, why am I feeling guilty? And once I found God and became a believer and follower of Jesus, I learned that like, no matter what happens, if I mess up, if I go use today, God's going to be right there with his hands open saying, that's okay. Come back. You don't have to, think of it as like, it's the worst possible thing that happened. So I think like I said, developing those qualities, I think the working the 12 steps was a game changer for me at a young age too. At like 21 is the first time I worked the steps, and I was able to process my life, process my childhood, understand why I did things because of what I was taught growing up, and what, it was subconsciously things are placed into us as kids that we never knew. The limited mindset of your parents telling you, well, we can't afford that. The scarcity mindset. So these things that we never knew were inbred in us, and almost in our genetics too. Like it comes up through generations and generations. So like they say, once every 60 years, someone in a family is the one who breaks the cycle. Mm-hmm. And so like, I think that for me in this generation of my family's genetic history, I'm that person. Mm-hmm. And I want to be that person for more than just my family. Like, but so I look at it as, legacy, right? My legacy is what I'm doing today. Maybe it's not my maybe my great grandkids will never know my name. They'll never know who I was, right? But what I'm doing today is going to change their lives. And that's kind of why I do what I do on a daily basis. When I don't want to get up in the morning, that's what wakes me up in the morning. That's my why. My family, my kids, my son, everybody that relies on me, depends on me. Me, myself, because I'm, God, then me. So I don't want to fail myself. I don't want to sell myself short. So that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me wanting to be a leader. But I think, like, to answer the question, short version, it's always kind of been
I
in
like
me.
the long version. Thanks.
It's always kind of been in me. But it's in all of us. So it's not that people don't have it. They just haven't. I swung the bat a little more times than most people, other folks. So,
For me, mine was different than yours in the fact of I always feel like I'm falling short even till today. Cause, my dad was, I was raised in the church. I don't even think I ever heard my parents cuss, maybe twice, like my mom taught Bible study. My mom was just telling me on this trip I was with how they took like 17 missionary kids or something over to Europe, and like they were set the bar so high. So, I had no reason to fall on drugs and end up in jail multiple times. So, I have these conversations and, now I'm like, I look up to my father and I'm constantly trying to be that dad that he was. So I'm, when you say breaking the generational curse, like I'm trying to live up to it, in a sense, and it's just, I never feel like, I'm doing the right thing. I think after spending some time with, my mom and, she, I could see that she was proud of where, I've come from that place. And I, had a little bit of like, not falling short, but just feeling like, okay, like I'm becoming that person I'm supposed to be. I'm following God's will. I'm trying to be the leader of my family. So, I just experienced that. And it's just when you had mentioned that about falling short, but you also mentioned about discipline. So what does discipline, give you that motivation over will?
Discipline is ongoing. Motivation is for your weekend seminar or your spiritual retreat. You feel motivated. You're like, yeah, let's go. And then 3 days later, you're back to doing the same stuff again. So like the word discipline is the root word for disciple. So to be discipled by somebody means for them to teach you or for you to teach. So the Bible says, go make disciples. Discipline is to teach or to learn. Somebody corrected me on that because I always thought of it as to teach. So we had a study one time. It was a Saturday morning with Ray Desmangles at Panera Bread and Tradition, and the teaching was on discipline, and we all kind of went around the room and said, without picking up our phones and looking up the definition, what does it mean to you? Because we all have kind of that idea in our minds, and obviously even the book, the Webster's definition is kind of jaded and what it really means. And so like you think about when you discipline your kid, what does that mean to you? I'm asking.
I'm trying to teach him, if I discipline my kid, I'm trying to show him consequences for a decision that he made.
Okay. You didn't answer the way I wanted you to answer.
Okay.
But you're right.
Let me go again.
No. So, but here's how I answered.
Yes.
To spank my kid.
Yeah.
Spank him, put him in the corner. Like we think that's disciplining him. But it's doing the same thing. We're trying to portray the same message of exactly what you're saying. Is it like, hey, you're getting punished for something you just did that I don't like, and you need to learn that that's not right. So you're teaching them, right? But it's not spanking or beating them. If they continue to do it, they're going to learn by getting spanked or beaten on their own, and whether they're beating their head up against the wall in life. And so we're just trying to keep them from going down that road.
Right.
Don't touch the stove. Well, guess what I did?
Right.
Why? And so discipline was something, learning exactly what it meant that, I needed to discipline myself, to have the self-discipline and to say, hey, if you're not doing this, you don't get this, right? And it might not necessarily be something of value, like if I have like this reward of like a gold medal at the end. No, I'm training my body to be the best version of myself so that I can look better, feel better, be able to do more things in life. Just having a good physique when you walk in the room, you don't even have to say a word and you've said a paragraph. you know, and people understand, they can see that you're disciplined, that you take care of yourself. You're, you know, it portrays a message before you even open your mouth. You're emitting some sort of a light. Because it ain't something you can buy at Amazon. You know what I mean?
Well,
it
and
takes work.
something that's stuck with me forever, as you know, Deion Sanders said it, and it's look good, feel good, play good, get paid good. And, you know, for some reason, you know, that just always stuck with me because it's so true. You know, if you look good or if you work out, you feel purposeful, you feel like, you know, you've got up and you handle what you're supposed to, then that transfers over into your business and your family. And especially being a leader, you know, how can you tell your son, don't eat that bag of potato chips when, again, like I mentioned earlier, you're eating it or you're not in the gym or you're not setting that example, you know, and that's the same with football. You know, like if I'm tired, I don't want to go, or baseball. You know, I was up this morning at 5 in the morning. You know, you think I want to go every morning at 5 in the morning at the gym? You know, so I'm trying to set that example because, you know, I would say I'm from the show me state. You know, you can tell me anything. I've been in business. I've been in the streets. You know, people lie and see, they're going to tell you whatever. But, you know, what your example is, you could tell me you're the best person with nutrition, fitness, peptides, whatever the case may be. But if you're 250 pounds and you're 40% body weight and you come with, you know, a McDonald's crushed up bag in the back of your truck, you know, I don't care what you have to say. I don't, you know, you might have read a book, but that's not what I care about.
Right.
You know, come from leadership of the
Show
example.
me.
The show.
I want evidence. And I'm an energy guy. Like, I'm a big energy guy. So like you can get vibes off of people by the energy that they bring. And so like, I want to have that energy to where, because it's attractive, right? So like, you can see that somebody has this thing about them. Like, they just have this vibe, this aura before they even say a word. And you're like, hey, I want what this guy has. It might not even be about like them being rich or anything or having a nice car. It's like, hey, you know, and I share this all the time, and it's something new that I think really needs to get out there. You see a lot of these like influencers and people who got all this money and these Lamborghinis and stuff, but like, how many of them are in monogamous relationships and trying on a daily basis to have a wife and like, that's the stuff we need to be talking about people who have issues with pornography, people who have issues with lust and drug addiction, and you know, that's the real issue. Like, you know, forget about your Lamborghini that you rented for the weekend. Like, let's talk about why, you know, and business development, business growth. Like, 12-step, we're different because we've already been able to work on ourselves. But most business owners or people who want to grow and become millionaires and all these things, they need to work on this.
No, first and foremost.
This needs to get worked on. Otherwise, you're going to hit a plateau. It'll happen every time. And you'll never be able to get past it because of how you are being. And
what I've seen in business is people, you know, lose a person or fail in business, and they're blaming that person. They're blaming that person. They're blaming that person. I mean, you got three fingers pointing back at you. It's, if you don't look
leader,
at yourself, you know, you're the reason. You know, if 5 people leave you and have the same problem, and if that you tell me that person should have done different, that person should have done different. Business is ran off analytics. If 5 people have the same problem, that's not the problem.
Right.
You know, you need to act different. They don't need to act different. But people, it took me 2 years of therapy and the 12 steps and all that to realize. I mean, before I looked at every single other person but myself. I wouldn't look at myself for anything. And now, you know, through that process of falling so far, you know, the first person I look at myself, and then I analyze, is it me? You know, what should I change? How should I do it? Should I apologize? Where, you know, what is my inventory on this? And then I have to, you know, analyze to say, well, is this person really wrong, or is it something that I need to change?
Right.
You know, that was never there before. You know, what's one thing in society that they're celebrating that they shouldn't be celebrating? When you mentioned about the Lambo and all of that, you know, it made me think, you know, like I just think.
Listen, man, I mean, anybody who has stuff will tell you that, like, that was this huge goal of theirs to get it, and then you get it, and then there's like, now what? So the true, that for me is the lie. You know, I'm not gonna say I don't like things, because I came from a background in a childhood where, like, I always wanted things. And you know, I just did an interview with a girl the other day, and like, her whole mission for her life was based off of her parents telling her they couldn't afford to go to Disney World. And she's like, well, we're going to go to Disney World. her whole life, her focus was like to be able to make enough money to be able to take her parents to Disney World. And now she's a super successful woman, you know, has her own brand. And like for me, like I said, it's that is more valuable to me than money is, you know, the guy that's coming to me for fitness coaching and that has lost 50 pounds in 2 months. And this guy's life's going to be changed forever now. He's going to live longer. He's going to have more time with his kids. He's going to, like, that to me is more valuable than the $400 a month he's giving me. Like, I would rather have that than anything. So I think the lie is that you like, there's never a destination. There's never like, as soon as I get that Porsche, I'm done. Like I've made it in life. Like, because that's, for me, there's always like a continuous goal setting experience after experience. So,
you know, how do you find time management, you know, between fitness, alliance, you know, I see you at a bunch of, you know, fund supporting people. You got discipline and legacy. You've got, you know, a lot of different things going on. I mean, how is that? How are you finding that balance?
I wouldn't say that I've mastered balance, but I'd say that I've gotten a lot better at it. And I learned about balance in the 12 step and meetings. And I learned that like you need to add. And so like for me, I'm one of those people that like, if my plate is not like overflowing, I'm not functioning properly. So like if I'm sitting there with nothing to do, I'm going to get in trouble. I can't twiddle my thumbs. I have to be doing something. So like I have learned over the past few years to add and subtract things from my life, obviously with my priorities in check. So God, myself, my wife, my family, everything else. So there are times when I'm, you know, come home from work, hop on the computer, start working on discipline legacy stuff. I usually spend about an hour every day. So that's 5 hours a week during the week that I'm spending on extracurricular things. And when I start noticing, you know, every Saturday is my wife's day. Every Friday night we go to dinner, we do something. If I'll get lucky on a Saturday, she's getting her nails done, I can go to the gym or something if she lets me. But
those are non-negotiables.
And like I said, with the priorities where they are. So my son, you know, making sure that it's more than just a 10-minute conversation when I come home and I know I'm ready to go to sleep. I know I'm tired. I just want to shower and go lay in the bed, but I need to go in there and just love on him. You know what I mean? Give him some time, make him feel at home. And I haven't seen him in like a month. I call him every once in a while. He's playing video games, but he's been at his mom's over the summer. And I'm just keep like, yo, like, make sure we're still, you know, you're going to be in 10th grade next year. Like, let's start talking about what you're doing here. 3 more years. Like, you're going to be an adult, you know, just still. He's like, all right, Dad, whatever. And like, people tell him, they're like, do you know who your dad is? Like, you know, like, you got these resources at your fingertips. And he's like, that's just my dad. Like, he's just like, whatever. But I don't know, man, just keeping the priorities straight, and knowing when to take and add things to my plate. And even if it's for a week, like I was doing the prison ministry every Tuesday. I've realized that every Tuesday was getting tough. So I'm like, hey guys, you know what? I'm going to commit to one time a month. Give me the first Tuesday of a month. And that's what I'll do. And I'm still getting my reps in. I'm still going to do what I love, but it's one Tuesday a month.
Finding that balance.
I don't want to lose. I would say my biggest fear is somebody who's grinding for a life to, like, obviously I want to grow my coaching, my fitness program. I want to grow my, you know, my mentorship program to be able to help others. And I want to grow the podcast studio, but I feel like it's a compounding effort, you know, of maybe a few years before that stuff starts growing. So I don't want to let that stuff take priority to where I end up losing my family. Because like I said, look at these people that they're grinding, they're killing it, they're doing great, or they have the illusion that they are, but they're single.
Right. They don't have a family, you know, and that was a big thing. You know, I've said publicly on here that, you know, when I was locked up, I reached out to my mom, you know, and I'm sure I was asking for a pack or whatever the case may be, a hot plate.
I
And
just sent one to my nephew.
did you? Yeah, it's important, again, it's important to do that.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone who has someone, supports them. And when they get out, you support them through the rooms or whatever their case may be. Because if you've ever been in that situation, it's a terrible place to be in.
Yeah, I pick up the phone every time I can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's important. So my mom, I reached out to her and she told me that she had cancer. So, I'm blessed by being busy and helping families and doing this. And, I've got support from my family, but to leave for like 18 days with my mom, I sat down with my wife and we talked about it. And, my mom talked with my wife, and I had to think about like how important, these times are going to be. And, I lost my dad a couple weeks after my 16th birthday. So, to take that time away at a time, like I had 5 deals going, and luckily my wife came and support me, and, she take over, she does real estate. So it's just, but finding that time and realizing what's important. Before, I would have never done that. Never would have took the time to spend those memories and the bonds and the stories. Like I know so much about my mom and my dad before, I was around, and her growing up, that she never felt comfortable telling me until I'm old enough to be a man now to hear some of these, and how the tough time she grew up on 20th Street, and, a block from the hood, Dav Avenue D. So, she told me a lot of stories. So, finding that time is important when you're
You're
so
have them
busy.
all on the podcast.
I talked to her about it, and she didn't even want to take pictures with me, but I'm going to. My son now, he's ready. He's mad I haven't had him on yet, so I'm going to have one of my sons is very outgoing, and the other one's more quiet, and he doesn't want to. But all those things, I'm going to read. I'm not a good memorizer,
Go
so
ahead,
I want to
bro.
read this because this is, for you. Jonnie, imagine 30 years from now, your children, grandchildren, friends, business partners, all the people you've helped me, I've seen you help a ton of people, are sitting together talking about their life. What do you hope they say about the man you were and the impact you made and the legacy you left behind?
I mean, I would like to say that I don't think that the man that I am today, anybody can say anything bad about. I can say that confidently. I don't think that anybody could come to me right now and say something to me about like any content I create or how I carry myself today and be like, yo, you're a piece of crap, dude. Like, I would think that they know that I carry myself in a way that is inspirational, is of value, and that I bring a certain energy to a room that just kind of lights up a room, and I couldn't say that before. I was really, really humble, really like couldn't like speak good things about myself because I'm not saying it in like a cocky way. I'm saying it in like, these are values that I know that I carry.
One thing I can say is that, I know you're busy and, running a business, and we just mentioned 10 things you're doing. Anytime I've ever reached out to you, you've shown up, rather, multiple times, middle of the day, doesn't matter, called you this morning on the spot. So I think one thing that I've heard other people say, and myself personally from my own experience, is when you say you're going to do something, you do it.
100%.
And I know from someone through addiction, you've had times in your life when that wasn't the case. So it's so important to be that man, and I know you're that man today. What are you doing today to make sure that becomes true, or actually stays true, not becomes true, because stays true?
Just going to continuously adapt and overcome to continuously grow. I mean, that's my everyday kind of goal, is that like new challenges, new realities, like obviously trying to mix it up even with training now. We're training for this High Rocks that's coming next month, and it's like I did a 5K a few months back, you know what I mean? I trained for that. I hate running, and like just little things that like to challenge myself to grow, and just like when you're working out, right? Or for me, when I'm working out, I like to say like I'm going to do 10 reps. Right. So that's the goal for that morning. It's the hardest thing I'm going to do all day is this 10 reps. But I said I want to do 10 reps. And then I get to 10. I'm like, man, I could probably do 12. And I'm like, do 12. And then like 14. And like, so that's the mindset, and that I want to continue to carry it for myself, is it like to set the bar, set the standard, and then go past it a little bit. We talked about it right before I went in here,
Mhm.
and because that's the challenge of me for myself. I'm always like, I remember I built the Brightline Railroad, did 136 miles of the Brightline Railroad as a dirt guy. So cut and grade, building the base rock roads and putting the rock on top. And they would set us. First of all, they gave me like the cast out crew. Like I was the new supervisor. I had all the guys nobody wanted, and we built this team to where like we would show up in the morning and they'd be like, hey, you got to get like 3,000 feet today to, make money. And we'd do like 9,000. So like we'd destroy it. And I wasn't supposed to run equipment. We had radios. So like our code word was pineapples. So like whenever I heard the word pineapples, I hurried up and park the grader and get off of it. But I guess having that one extra person running a piece of equipment, made us way more efficient and way more productive. And so that was like the beginning of like saying, hey, if you tell me this is what you need me to do, I'm going to do 3 times as much.
Do you consider yourself an overachiever?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm just being me.
Just doing you.
Yeah.
That's it. Born that way.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Okay.
Appreciate it. I love everything you got going on, bro. It's like, I keep telling you every time I talk to you, I'm like, keep putting in the reps, man.
Absolutely. You got to keep.
I hated being in front of a camera. I hated like talking. I hated everything. But like when God's got you on a path, and you just got to keep walking on it.
Well, yeah, like I mentioned, I had a person come in who had a dog shelter. So being able to be that person to like help somebody, and it started out with after you, I was just after doing it with you, I just enjoyed it, and I reach out to people that I know. Let's talk shop and business, and it just develops into more.
100%.
So appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's Realty Trader Talk podcast. I'm Jordan Kane with sponsored by Chaser Water and RealtyTrader.com. I appreciate you guys tuning in, like and share. I'm trying to get my subscribers up. I appreciate it.